So between the big tech hearing today and the Attorney General on the Hill yesterday, it's been a high-profile week of heated hearings on Capitol Hill. Democrats used the opportunity to take aim at the Attorney General. So let's debate the mood on Capitol Hill with Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and author of the brand new book, Defender-in-Chief, John Yoo. Good to have you both with us.
Hey, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. Good to be here.
Okay, so John, regardless of which side of the aisle that you're on, if you watched this thing yesterday, and listen, it happens when different groups are in power, different parties are in power, but to continually grill the Attorney General, and when he would have tried to answer a question to say, I reclaim my time, and not let him answer, and then call him rude, John, it seemed like a little bit of a stretch yesterday.
I thought it was incredible. Look, I've been a staffer on the Senate, on the Judiciary Committee, and helped prepare senators, and I've been a witness before congressional committees. I've never seen anything like the performance yesterday. They treated Bill Barr like he was one of the cardboard cutouts in these second-rate Major League Baseball games we've been watching. He's just a prop. They were making speeches, campaign commercials essentially, and they weren't giving Attorney General Barr the chance to answer. Our congressmen and congresswomen should remember that these events are called hearings. They're called hearings for a reason. They are supposed to be hearing and listening to the American people about problems and to be seeing how the executive branch is doing its job. Instead, they did all the talking, and I'm afraid wasted a whole day of the Attorney General's time when he has a lot of important things to be doing. There are serious problems, no doubt, that they could be asking questions about. The riots in Portland, the intervention of federal law enforcement officers, and so on. Instead, they went ahead and scored, I thought, cheap political points rather than really trying to figure out what the problems are and what possible solutions are.
And Leslie, I mean, there was plenty of coverage, and there are those on different points of the ideological spectrum who think the Democrats didn't do themselves a ton of favors yesterday with this hearing because it did look very combative and unserious. Do you think that's a legitimate point?
Yes, I do. I'm a Democrat. I felt they were clearly out for blood. And, look, whether it's left or right, I would agree with John in the sense that if you're going to ask a question, you need to hear at a hearing the answer. But here's the problem further. With these televised hearings, we see it on reality shows all the time. People play for the cameras. And we see that both from Republicans, and Democrats. And I think sometimes they lose sight. What Democrats were accusing the Attorney General of was not being the Attorney General, the lawyer for the United States, but rather being biased and being the president's, if you will, personal lawyer. And I think there were 2 times he alluded to that, and they should have pushed back more. And I personally would have liked to have heard more answers regarding 2 issues, voter fraud by mail, which he had no evidence of his comments for, and in addition for COVID-19 and some of the failings not only of the federal government, but of the various states.
Well, and for this issue about mail-in ballots, I mean, there are a number of cases that have been, flagged in recent headlines, and not least of which is the fact that in New York, not necessarily fraud, but that a bunch of ballots that are still missing weeks after the election there, the primary election there. So I know there are a lot of questions on that point. But I want to ask you quickly both about the president tweeting this about the big tech today, saying if Congress doesn't bring fairness to big tech, which they should have done years ago, I will do it myself with executive orders. In Washington, it's been all talk and no action for years. And the people of our country are sick and tired of it. Before we run out of time, I want to get a quick comment from you both. John, can he do that?
Well, gosh, I think antitrust is really boring, frankly, but I think there is a much more important issue at stake. Can the government regulate these very large companies, which are private companies, so they don't have to follow the free speech clause of the Constitution? Can the government intervene and force them to give free rights of speech to everyone? I'm not sure they can, and I don't know if they can do it under the guise of antitrust law.
Yeah, and although, Leslie, some will say it's become a bit of a public forum, and the government may have an interest in getting involved there.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny John said that because I was going to say, look, Congress needs to rethink antitrust laws, period, whether you have these hearings or not. This is an area where you have bipartisan agreement. Additionally, I think we have not just national but international agreement when it comes to protecting our children for the child sex abuse exploitation that we see out there on the internet. But even more so, Shannon, right now, the American people, I think, are really sick of hearings, whether it's the Attorney General or these tech giants, because what Americans really care about is COVID Are they going to be able to feed themselves with July 31st fast approaching? And in addition to that, the racial injustice, the riots, the protests. That's what's on America's minds. Not Google, not Amazon, not Facebook, and not Bill Barr.
All right, Leslie, we're going to talk about that coming up with this special guest. Thank you both very much. Leslie and John, good to see you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.